Over 60? Discover the 4 shocking carbs to avoid and the 4 amazing ones to transform your health. Margaret flipped through the pages of the latest health magazine, her unease mounting with each glossy, brightly colored spread. The bold claims sat before her like insurmountable obstacles, 4 shocking carbs to avoid. She leaned back in her chair, feeling the familiar weight of despair settle into her bones. Last week, the doctor had warned her about high blood pressure, and now the nagging fatigue clung to her like a worn blanket. She had dedicated her life to nurturing young minds, yet here she was, lost in the dim light of her kitchen, unrecognized and overshadowed by the memory of her late husband, Henry. Her daughter Anna entered, her enthusiasm a stark contrast to Margaret's sense of defeat. "Mom, have you thought more about what we talked about? The changes you could make?" The cloying sweetness in Anna's voice gripped Margaret's heart. "I can't change overnight," she snapped, though inside her fears swirled. How could she explain that her afternoon bruised apples and stale bread were all that felt stable in the torrent of grief? As their conversation slipped into the realm of hushed arguments and irritated silences, Margaret felt crushed between the aspirations of the health-conscious and the languishing shadows of her own past. The abrupt loss of her greatest companion, paired with Anna's desire to fix what she believed was broken, put Margaret in a self-perceived prison, a place far removed from her vitality, where change seemed to taunt her like a ghost whispering all the things she could no longer be. Margaret craved solace, but with every suggestion from Anna, her heart screamed the tension that shaped daily life. She was losing herself. A sudden wave of fatigue hit her as she envisioned escalating arguments, heated discussions buzzing with accusations of neglecting her own health, a maternal clash that meant hurting one who only wanted the best. "Mom, you need to take this seriously," Anna had said last week, her voice threadbare with concern. But how could Margaret take it seriously when her whole identity had been woven around being a caregiver, a nurturer, a teacher, someone opposite to the fragile creature she felt now? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. A sudden heat shot through her as a memory crashed in. Henry's laughter echoing through the kitchen, the joyful chaos of family dinners mingled with warm aromas.
Noise became silence after his death, but the walls still held remnants of joy. Could a mere dietary shift fill the void? The realization gnawed at her. The foods that represented comfort were also chains, pulling her deeper into sorrow and separation from her family. With tension simmering and Anna's insistence intensifying, a nagging self-doubt twisted like a knife in her gut. Faces began to blend into shadows. Margaret feared that if she engaged, she might lose herself completely, drowned by expectations, and ultimately break the bond that tethered her to her daughter. Clenching her hands, she felt trapped in a cycle of resistance and longing, staring at the cluttered kitchen counter, an unstirred vessel of dreams and dread. Just as she took a deep breath, a crushing tightness enveloped her chest, a sudden blackness closing in that made her crossroad feel murky and unfathomable. Margaret needed to make a choice, but which way would she go? The coming confrontation with her own health was unavoidable, as was the inevitable reckoning with the love laid bare and distorted amid her grief. What if stepping toward change meant stepping away from her roots of love? Anxiety tightened around her as she approached an uncertain horizon, the answer hiding just out of reach, leaving her heart racing with questions no one's gotten close enough to answer. Margaret awoke to the sharp light filtering through the curtains, a stark reminder that another day was upon her, whether she was ready or not. It clawed at her body, demanding action. The familiarity of her discomfort settled around her like a heavy weight, yet today felt different. An urge flickered in her chest, a whisper she couldn't ignore. Maybe it was the remnants of a dream, or perhaps it was the presence of her daughter's unwavering concern that forged a quiet determination. She stepped into the kitchen, the very space where shadows of the past tangled with the hope for a cleaner, brighter future. The disarray of last night's dinner still lay strewn across the countertops, a testament to the cycle of neglect she had fallen into. With every rubber band of a memory tightening in her chest, she couldn't overlook the growing discomfort of her surroundings any longer. The clutter mirrored her mind, overwhelmed, chaotic, and chaotic. Margaret cracked an edge into a pan, the sizzling sound breaking the morning silence. Cooking had always been a sanctuary, a time when she could pour herself into tangible results. The process felt liberating, perhaps more than any health article could convey. But as she mixed the ingredients, guilt seeped in. Could the nutrients and energy within this simple meal begin to heal the chasms left by Henry's absence? Deep within, a new thought surfaced. Perhaps her cooking could reflect a change too. The idea of infusing health into her meals seemed daunting, yet opening a path to improved health felt invigorating.
She poured her heart into the omelet as she stirred, her thoughts dancing between what she loved and the drastic shifts her daughter suggested. If only she could balance nostalgia with novelty, the comforting past with the invigorating present. The idea settled like the golden yolk in her pan. She realized she didn't have to throw away her beloved recipes. Instead, she could adapt them, making space for new ones that promote health. What if she transformed meals from comfort foods into dishes that offered nourishment for her body and spirit? Later that afternoon, with the sun at its peak, Margaret unexpectedly found herself standing in the vibrant produce aisle at the local market. She fingered the smooth skin of avocados, the bright green of cucumbers, and the simplicity of fresh herbs. Each item held potential. It felt like the first page of a blank book. "Mom, you made it!" Anna's excited voice pierced through the sea of vegetables, vibrating with encouragement. "I'm so proud of you." Her daughter's warmth lit a fire within Margaret. No longer a passive observer, she started selecting ingredients with purpose, a cart that symbolized movement, growth. With each choice, she began challenging old patterns, confidently seizing her culinary adventure as if adopting a new identity, one that harmonized with her role as a mother and an individual exploring her freedom. Days passed, and she found herself crafting healthier variations of her favorite recipes, experimenting with spices and flavors that ignited her senses. Laughter and joy returned, as Anna often joined her, blending their kitchen rhythm into something more lively, while lively conversations unfolded amidst the sizzling pans. However, beneath the surface, fragments of doubt still lingered. Margaret wrestled with insecurities about whether she was truly making sustainable changes, or if they were merely a fleeting attempt to placate her fears. One night she gazed into the mirror, feeling a flicker of uncertainty. Was she simply masking grief with kale and quinoa? Confrontation with herself was inevitable. The deeper issues coursing through her veins whispered of a truth that had yet to fully materialize. "How can cooking heal if I don't confront what I've lost?" she thought, the question weighing heavily on her heart. Margaret felt the tension unraveling, understanding that the real transformation was waiting to be uncovered, not simply in what she consumed, but in embracing the lost inspirations, learning to navigate this new chapter without the burden of abandoning her past. The time had come to tap into these hidden reserves of strength, to stitch together the delicate balance of love and grief. What more could unlock if she decides to face it fully, pushing beyond the recipes and into the deeper parts of her heart aching for surety? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows in her kitchen, she closed her eyes, savoring the journey ahead, unafraid to traverse the shadows of her past for the sake of her future. What awaited her in the depths of this culinary exploration promised not just nourishment, but strength she had yet to discover. Margaret awoke the next morning with a new resolve, a determination that surged within her, stronger than the remnants of yesterday's uncertainty. She felt a flicker of excitement as she recalled her cooking experiments and the laughter she shared with Anna. Today, she would deepen that journey, not only as a mother, but as a woman reclaiming her identity. After a quick breakfast, she donned her now familiar apron, its fabric stained with splashes of vibrant ingredients, a badge of her culinary explorations. But instead of merely a simple omelet, she decided to push her boundaries further. Today, she would attempt a new dish, one that challenged her to think creatively about health and flavor. As she laid out the ingredients on the counter, Margaret contemplated her choices. The task seemed almost symbolic. Each vegetable represented a piece of her life, a reminder of what she was cultivating. The decision to use more whole grains over refined ones was more than just a dietary shift. It was a conscious choice to elevate her health, step by step, a reflection of her evolving mindset. She recalled Anna's contagious enthusiasm for healthy foods, and a smile formed at the corners of her lips. Perhaps today wouldn't just involve her. The kitchen could be an open invitation for her daughter. Inviting her in felt right, knowing that their shared experiences could create a new story together. "Anna," Margaret called out, her voice echoing lightly in the hallway, "how about we make a quinoa salad?" Her daughter's footsteps approached quickly, and soon Anna appeared, her face alight with curiosity. "Can I help?" She almost bounced on her toes. Together, they washed the quinoa, laughed at the peculiarity of its tiny, swirling grains, and sliced colorful bell peppers, reminding Margaret of the simplicity of joy that comes from working side by side with someone you love. With each addition they made, avocado, cherry tomatoes, and a zesty dressing, they built not just a dish, but a memory. Yet Margaret often found her thoughts straying back to her insecurities. After they finished preparing, they sat at the small kitchen table, both admiring their creation.
"Mom, this looks amazing. I love how colorful it is," Anna said, genuine admiration lighting her face. "Thanks, sweetheart, but do you really think it will taste good? I mean, it's so different from what we usually eat." Anna paused, looking at her mother. "It's different, but that's exciting. Why not try something new? Change can be good." Margaret absorbed the weight of her daughter's words, realizing that perhaps embracing change meant inviting uncertainty into her life.
That fear she clung to, the fear of failing or being inadequate, could be a powerful driving force if only she chose to look at it differently. Embracing an unfamiliar flavor profile and healthy choices could become emblematic of her journey into embracing the unknown in her life. "Let's dig in," Margaret said, pushing aside her doubts. Her heart raced as they tasted the salad, the flavors bursting in her mouth, a satisfying taste of success, layered with courage. Each bite was a declaration of her evolving self. Moments later, their laughter filled the air. Success didn't rely solely on perfection. It was found in presence and shared experience. This simple salad, vibrant and delicious, tasted of possibility and transformation. But as they cleaned up, Margaret's mind turned inward. The sweetness of the meal did little to fully quell the complexities that lingered within her. The churning restlessness in her gut hinted at a deeper resolve still unfulfilled. Could this newfound passion for cooking be enough? That night, as she prepared for bed, an overwhelming thought crashed over her. What if this transformation required more than just revolutionizing her meals? It demanded a confrontation with her emotions, her past. Could she truly heal and re-embrace her life's rhythm while still tethered to the shadows of grief? Adapting recipes meant little if she didn't adapt her heart. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Margaret felt the weight of those unresolved feelings swirling within her like an uncoiled spring. There were still fears she hadn't fully confronted, emotional barriers that separated her from happiness. "Tomorrow," she whispered shakily to herself, "I'll decide to face it all." Margaret's breath quickened as the prospect loomed large before her. What would it mean to delve deeper into her soul, unlocking the pain that had become a part of her culinary journey? With uncertainty now palpitating through her chest, she braced herself for what lay ahead. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting a glow on the remnants of the quinoa salad. Despite the bright light, Margaret felt the shadows of her unresolved emotions creeping back. Today was pivotal. She understood that her culinary journey required more than simple changes in her cooking. It demanded a reevaluation of her emotional landscape. The lingering taste of that vibrant salad remained a mark of her newfound courage, but it was clear to her now that her challenges extended far beyond the kitchen. As she washed up, Margaret recognized the metaphor in her daily rituals. Each body of water she rinsed from her hands into the sink symbolized another layer of her past she needed to confront. "Mom, can we make something else today?" Anna's enthusiastic voice broke through the fog of Margaret's thoughts, sparking her attention. "Sure, sweetheart. What do you have in mind?" she asked, feigning enthusiasm, while her mind buzzed with deeper contemplations. "Cookies!"
"Let's bake some!" Anna clapped her hands, her joy contagious. While the process of baking was manageable, Margaret felt apprehensive. The last time they had baked together, memories of chaotic kitchen disasters flashed through her mind, mingling with images of lost hopes. "All right, let's make them healthy, shall we?" she suggested, her voice steadying. As they gathered the ingredients, Margaret took a moment to ground herself. Her strategic inclinations flooded back. She needed a plan, a way to tackle not only the cookie recipe, but also the disarray within her heart. "Do you want to help with measuring the oats?" Margaret asked Anna, who eagerly nodded. The familiarity of their collaboration reignited a flicker of joy. "Mom, how about we try adding some nuts and seeds? Maybe flaxseed?" Anna suggested, and Margaret felt pride swell as she recognized Anna's burgeoning creativity in the kitchen. "Great idea! Those are packed with nutrients. They'll make our cookies more interesting, just like we did with our salad." The analogy struck Margaret like lightning. Each baking ingredient mirrored aspects of her life, shaping her experiences, infusing them with texture and flavor. As they mixed the ingredients, Margaret's mind drifted to the deeper question she had been wrestling with. Was it enough to simply modify her cooking? Would that deliver the emotional gratification she sought? She needed to gather the courage to peel back layers, confront the aftermath of loss, and emerge renewed. "Mom, can we try to make these cookies full of colors like the salad? Let's use different kinds of chocolate chips," Anna chimed in, her innocence cutting through Margaret's contemplations. "Of course," Margaret breathed out with a smile that felt more genuine.
In that moment, she realized that the vibrancy her daughter sought to inject into their cookies was a reflection of what Margaret yearned for in her life. The moment of truth arrived when the cookies slid into the oven, their fragrant aroma filling the kitchen. Margaret stood beside Anna, their eyes fixated on the bubbling gooiness through the oven door. But anticipation morphed into a gnawing apprehension. What if this simple act carried a lesson that unraveled her fears? "Mom, do you think we'll like them?" Anna asked, her voice breaking through Margaret's spiral of self-doubt. "Honestly, I don't know, but let's not be afraid this time," Margaret said, pheromones shifting the atmosphere as she claimed her agency. "Whatever they taste like, it's the process that counts, isn't it?" Anna nodded, absorbing the lessons baked into every moment they shared. But as the cookies baked, Margaret felt the furnace of her anxiety heating up. Creating healthy meals was one thing, facing her grief was another beast altogether. The realization lingered uneasily. Could she confront the aspects of her past that had been holding her captive, just like the cookies confined in the oven?
As the timer chimed, a bitter irony washed over her. There was freedom in transformation, both in baking and in life, but the road ahead was fraught with unknowns. With a heart pounding against her ribs, Margaret made a decision. The next step after cookies would not just be in the kitchen, it would take her deeper into her own heart. Could she embark fully on this journey and possibly unravel the knots of sorrow tied within her? With that thought simmering in her mind, Margaret watched the cookies rise, preparing to taste both the sweetness of success and the bitterness of her unresolved past. What awaited her when she confronted those layers she had avoided? The day drew closer when she'd take the plunge into the depths of her emotional kitchen, and she could feel the heat of transformation stirring beneath the surface. The aroma of freshly baked cookies wafted through the house, an inviting scent tinged with apprehension. As Margaret pulled the golden brown treats from the oven, she felt a rush of warmth, a fleeting comfort that filled the void she had grown accustomed to. Yet the bliss of her small victory was underscored by an internal struggle, an unresolved weight lodged deep within her chest. "Look at them, Mom, they're perfect!" Anna's jubilant exclamation snapped Margaret out of her reverie. The twinkle in her daughter's eyes reminded Margaret that within these walls lay not just ingredients and recipes, but potential for healing and transformation. "Let's let them cool," Margaret suggested, her voice laced with both tenderness and resolve. Once they settled, she carefully placed a cookie on a plate, holding it up like an offering. "What do you think? Should we taste test?" "Yes, yes!" Anna bounced on her heels, excitement bubbling over. But as Margaret broke the cookie in half, something within her tensed at the thought of biting into it, a metaphorical leap into the unknown. "To a new journey," she raised the cookie half in mock toast, and Anna giggled. This action was more than testing a recipe. It was a commitment to herself, a promise to dismantle the barriers holding her back from experiencing life fully. The cookie crumbled in her mouth, a mix of sweetness and healthier ingredients she had hoped would embody positive change. In this moment, Margaret recalled how she had shied away from trying new flavors in her life, adhering rigidly to the known, clinging to comfort rather than embracing variety. "Yum! Mom, we need to make these every week!" Anna's delighted voice echoed in her ears, urging Margaret to contemplate the momentum of their small victory. Could the celebration of a cookie symbolize the changes she was ready to embrace? Changes that extended beyond culinary boundaries into the raw territory of her emotions. As the two savored their baking triumph, a thought crystallized in Margaret's mind. What if each ingredient truly represented her emotional scaffolding?
The oats, nuts, and chocolate chips could be the building blocks of courage she needed to bridge her past with the charged present, to face her grief definitively. "Anna, how about we create a weekly baking tradition, a time for us to explore new recipes and flavors together?" Margaret proposed, her voice steady with newfound determination. Anna's eyes sparkled. "Can we make a rainbow cake next time, Mom?" "Absolutely," Margaret smiled, the idea igniting a flicker of enthusiasm. The prospect of mixing colors and flavors mirrored her vision of straying from monochrome grief into a spectrum of vibrant experiences. But as preparations for the next culinary adventure began, unease threaded through Margaret's thoughts. The emotional layers she was earnestly stirring up extended well beyond fun baking sessions. What would unearthing the sorrow within her heart require of her? The pursuit of professional fulfillment mingled uneasily with her cravings for healing. Could the very act of baking serve as a catalyst for deeper introspection? Margaret knew she needed tools to navigate this labyrinth of feeling. She needed a guide to help excavate the truth she had buried beneath layers of self-doubt. Perhaps the upcoming baking sessions could be the catalyst, transforming not just cookie dough, but her very existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows in the kitchen, a resolve strengthened. Margaret envisioned a plan unfolding in front of her. She could set aside time each week not merely for baking, but for self-reflection, mindfully exploring the ingredients of her emotional life. In that moment of clarity, however, a chill ran through her. The journey to reigniting her passions and unearthing her grief felt fraught with uncertainty. Would she find allies in her past as she walked through the memories that haunted her? As evening settled in and the cookies cooled, Margaret found herself standing at the precipice of transformation. She could either retreat to the comforts of blandness or turn toward the rich complexity of flavors that awaited her in both the kitchen and her heart. Fatigue settled over her bones, but Margaret's mind raced. This next chapter of her life was ready to be written, and she held the pen firmly in her hand. As she turned her gaze toward the horizon, her heart echoed back, "It's time." What lay ahead in the confrontations between her memories and aspirations? Margaret's initial enthusiasm about the weekly baking tradition slowly morphed into a knot of anxiety as the days unfolded. The kitchen had transformed into the heart of her intent, yet with each passing moment she felt the weight of her past looming larger. Every ingredient she touched, every recipe she contemplated, echoed the unresolved grief she had been reluctant to confront. The cookies had suffused her with temporary joy, but the real work, the messy, uncomfortable self-exploration, still lay ahead.
The night before their next baking session, she lay awake, her mind running through her to-do list for both the week and her aspirations, but each thought looped back to the same question. Did she have the courage to face her inner turmoil? She envisioned the colorful layers of a rainbow cake, yet the thought of dissecting her emotions seemed murky and gray, a stark contrast to the vibrant imagery she had conjured. "Mom, are you okay?" Anna's voice erupted like a small storm as she entered Margaret's room. The concern in her daughter's eyes snapped Margaret from her haze. "I'm just thinking, sweetie," she replied, forcing a smile, "about our cake tomorrow." "Can I help?" Anna asked, her enthusiasm unabated. "Of course," Margaret's heart swelled with warmth. Yet, as she looked into her daughter's innocent eyes, a shiver coursed through her. Would baking with Anna be a moment of joy or a chance to dodge the depths she feared to explore? It was a dilemma she grappled with, indicative of a deeper internal schism, the wish to protect Anna from her own unresolved grief, while desiring to model honesty about their feelings. The next day, the kitchen buzzed with excitement as the two gathered ingredients with an infectious energy. Margaret watched Anna's hands skillfully measuring flour, her small fingers deftly mixing the colors. Each swirl in the bowl felt like a brushstroke on the vast canvas of their lives. Yet amidst the vivid hues of food coloring and cake batter, Margaret felt the twinge of reality tugging at her consciousness. The baking session evolved beyond a simple culinary task. It turned into a delicate dance around emotions that wanted to surface. As the oven warmed and the sweet scents curled around them, Margaret realized that she was not merely battling her past with this act of creation. She was building a bridge. "Mom, look how beautiful it is." Anna's joy filled the air like laughter, pushing against Margaret's walls. "Yes, beautiful," Margaret replied, though part of her remained apprehensive, uncertain if the colorful layers would glisten with the same radiance once baked as they did in her imagination. But amid the chaos of sprinkles and laughter, a revelation emerged. Baking with Anna transcended mere activity. It ignited a spark of vulnerability Margaret knew she could leverage. What if the act of making something together provided her the safe space through which she could delve deeper into her emotions? As she softened the edges of her grief within the joyful act of creation, she could also form connections to her past, inviting healing alongside ritual. The cake could become not just a treat, but a testament to survival and renewal. That night, after the colorful layers had cooled and they had shared slices decorated with frosting, Margaret felt a sense of tectonic shift. Perhaps confronting her grief didn't have to be a solitary endeavor. It could transform into a collaborative exploration with Anna. The idea of infusing layers of taste and texture with the complexity of her emotions burgeoned in her mind. What recipes would they tackle next, and how could each ingredient reflect her journey? As she began drafting a list of possible flavors and recipes to enrich their baking sessions, a newfound determination seeped in her bones. Each bake would become a reflection of her ongoing discovery, a living metaphor for the colorful paths she wished to navigate. Yet, as she absorbed the glimmers of excitement amid the uncertainty, An unsettling notion stirred within her. Would this endeavor be enough? Could she share these intangible layers with Anna, and more importantly, with herself, as she confronted the echoes of her past? The more she thought about it, the more questions unraveled. Was it her duty to explore this depth alone, or could Anna shine light on the darker corner she feared to enter? Just as these thoughts loomed, the silence of the night enveloped her, draping her mind in a shroud of contemplation. The colorful cake, once stationary in her imagination, now felt like a beacon guiding her toward the complex landscape of her emotions. As she cradled the warm warmth of commitment, Margaret wondered, was it time to pull back the curtain on her hidden grief? Would she dare to share this journey through baking, inviting Anna into spaces often thought better left explored alone? And just like that, the moment arrived, her opportunity to embrace a nurturing path, not just of flavor, but of healing. The stakes were rising, feelings were brewing, and Margaret could sense the pivotal moment drawing near. Would she take that leap into honesty, communicating her vulnerabilities as deeply as she mixed ingredients? The realization that loomed over her was simple yet critical. Facing her past was not just about herself anymore. It involved the team they were becoming, the bond they were forging. With this in mind, a decisive question filled her heart. How far would she go to redefine the relationship, not only with her grief, but with Anna, to let the baking sessions become a true act of creation towards a shared narrative? The time had come to choose. Would she be brave enough to let the layers unfold together? The first rays of light filtered through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of flour and frosting from their previous baking session. Margaret stood there, silently contemplating the task ahead. The rainbow cake had been a tangible success, but there was an emotional weight that still felt incomplete. How could she extend the feelings of joy and connection to her future endeavors? As she gathered ingredients for their next baking session, the familiar comfort of routine tugged at her. Yet with each chocolate chip she measured, apprehension coursed through her veins. Would the act of creation today be as liberating and meaningful? The uncertainty loomed larger than any ingredient on the countertop. The memory of Anna's laughter echoed in her mind, a reminder of the joy to be found in their shared moments. But today, Margaret also felt the pressure of authenticity mounting. This time, it wasn't just about baking. It was about peeling back layers of herself to reveal the vulnerability hidden beneath. It was a dilemma that gnawed at her. Could she invite Anna into that deeper space and risk exposing her own fragility? Just then, Anna dashed into the kitchen, colorful apron tied around her waist, ready and filled with energy. "Mom, what are we making today?" she asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "Treats, but not just any treats," Margaret replied, her heart fluttering. "I thought we could try baking some cookies, but with a twist. Each cookie could represent something different about us." "Like what?" Anna's curiosity sparked, encouraging Margaret to think on her feet. "Maybe a cookie that symbolizes accomplishments, and another for things we've learned." Margaret felt the tremor in her voice, the unseen impact of vulnerability drawing near. "We can use different flavors or decorations to show how each cookie tells a story." The concept resonated with Margaret, essentially baking their journey into tangible forms. It was raw, it was real. Forcing herself to commit to the idea ignited an unexpected determination within her. This time, every bite could evoke conversations, a subtle nudge toward deeper connections with her daughter. "Can I make the accomplishment cookie?" Anna asked, her small hands busy with measuring cups. "Absolutely. What accomplishment do you want to remember?" "I want to make a cookie for finishing my science project," Anna beamed, inspiration evident. As they began, Margaret marveled at her daughter's confidence. It reminded her of the journey she had to undertake, one filled with uncertainty, but brimming with hope. Each moment of creation mirrored their lives, intertwined with both triumphs and trials. "Mom, what cookie are you going to make?" Anna asked, breaking Margaret's concentrated thought. Margaret hesitated, then confessed softly, "I think I'll make one for learning to cope with tough feelings." Each word dripped with honesty, a leap of faith voiced aloud. "That's a great idea. Can we decorate it with sprinkles to show it's special?" "Of course," Margaret smiled, feeling the stirrings of a new bond with her daughter through this shared endeavor. As they rolled the dough and added sprinkles, Margaret felt the weight of her prior hesitations lighten. Acknowledging her grief didn't feel like a burden anymore. It transformed into an art form. With every cutout she crafted, it was as though she was shaping her emotions, giving them form without fear. Yet a quiet fear still loomed.
Would these cookies carry the weight of the messages she was trying to communicate? Would Anna grasp the underlying meanings?
Even as sweetness filled the air from the baked goods, the complex tastes of life lingered in the corners of her mind, waiting to be acknowledged openly. As the cookies cooled on a wire rack, an unexpected desire to share her feelings took root. Would this simple culinary experience lead to a deeper conversation about their shared grief? The stakes felt monumental, steps toward facing the past while promising to cultivate a brighter future. Margaret reminded herself that every layer of her journey, much like those cookies, needed time to form. The baking was a crucial step, an offering of sweetness amidst the complexity of emotion. Just as she absorbed the multitude of sensations, satisfaction, apprehension, hope, the oven timer chimed, a signal more than just for cookies, an invitation to confront what lay beneath. Now, standing together, adorned in flour-dusted aprons, Margaret faced an unexpected crossroads. Would she have the courage to share the layers behind the cookies they had crafted, or would the weight of her past threaten to overshadow their sweet creations? The thrill of the moment swallowed her thoughts. Each cookie now bore a story. The question remained, what story would she share, and would Anna understand? How deep was the depth she was willing to expose in this journey of baking and healing? The aroma of their cookies wafted through the kitchen, but Margaret noted the scent of deeper lessons lingering in the air, awaiting exploration. With Anna at her side, she stood on the precipice of truth, wondering if this would be the moment she summoned her courage to let vulnerability have its voice. Would this simple act of creating cookies ignite a conversation that could redefine both their relationship and their understanding of grief? The baking trail was only beginning, but as anticipation filled the air, Margaret could feel the tension tight around her heart. Would they leap into the unknown together? Margaret stood in front of the cooling rack, the scent of warm cookies swirling around her, drawing her deeper into contemplation. Each cookie told a story, yet she felt the weight of those stories pressing against her chest. Would this be the moment she could harness the power hidden in their creations? The tension both excited and terrified her. "Do you think we should decorate them now, Mom?" Anna's voice snapped her back to the present. The eagerness in her daughter's eyes was infectious, igniting a flicker of courage within Margaret. They could transform these baked goods into vessels of emotional connection. But how could she guide Anna without overwhelming her? "Let's decorate them. But first, remember we wanted to talk about what each cookie means?" Margaret suggested, reaching for the colorful icing tubes. Her hands trembled slightly, a telltale sign of the uncertainty nagging her thoughts. "Okay, I want to write science on mine." "Anna!" exclaimed, excitement spilling from her like the vibrant sprinkles that soon decorated the counter. Margaret grinned, the energy prompting her to move confidently. "And I'll add feelings to mine. We could use blue and purple as our colors, a little mix of what makes us happy and what sometimes makes us sad." The act of frosting felt cathartic. As Anna's laughter echoed through the kitchen, Margaret felt a burgeoning resolve unfurling inside of her. With each swirl of icing, she visualized the dialogue they might explore once these cookies took form. Suddenly, Anna looked up with wonder, eyes twinkling. "Mom, what exactly do you mean by coping with tough feelings? Can cookies really help with that?" Margaret's heart dropped. This was the moment she had anticipated, but now dreaded. Taking a breath, she realized that the straightforward question gave her a golden opportunity to open the door to deeper truths. "Well, sometimes when we feel sad or scared, it's hard to explain those feelings. But baking with you helps me understand and express them better. Each sprinkle and flavor is like a word." Anna nodded slowly, seemingly contemplating this. "So baking is like talking?" "Yes, exactly." Margaret felt a rush of pride for her daughter's insight. "And just like how these cookies can show joy and sadness, we can talk about our feelings too, like when we miss someone special." Anna tilted her head, considering the implications. "Like Grandma?" Margaret's heart tightened at the mention of Anna's grandmother, the void of loss always palpable. "Yes," she said softly. "Baking together is a way for us to remember her and all the things she loved." In that moment, as Anna began to color the letters on her cookie, Margaret found clarity. It was easier than she had imagined to weave difficult topics into something they could create together. Seeing Anna's spirit flourish through this simple act gave her confidence, igniting a flame of belief in herself as a mother and individual. "Mom, what do we do with the cookies after we finish the words?" Anna asked, her hands now decorated with icing and flour, mirroring the warmth overflowing in Margaret's heart.
I think we should share them. Maybe take some to Mrs. Carter next door. We can tell her what they mean. The idea sparked within her, taking root deeper than any sugar or flour could. By sharing their stories, they could reach out, linking the past with their present. Yes, she would love that! Anna's enthusiasm washed over Margaret like a comforting wave. However, beneath the excitement, a lingering apprehension filled Margaret's thoughts. Could this simple act of sharing strengthen not only their bond, but also empower Anna to understand and embrace her own feelings of loss? With each passing moment, the stakes felt heightened, not just for the cookies, but for the lessons they represented.
As they completed the final touches, Margaret realized they were on the cusp of something transformative. She was learning to share the weight of their joy and grief, slowly allowing herself to trust the process. Yet the underlying question remained: how would the act of sharing extend beyond just cookies? Was she truly ready to face her own reflections in the process of helping Anna navigate hers? With the cookies finally adorned, another wave of anxiety washed over her. As they prepared to step into the world outside their kitchen, Margaret pondered the possible conversations waiting ahead. Would they dive into the rawness of their shared emotions? Would each cookie become a bridge, stretching towards uncharted territories of understanding and healing? The moment loomed, holding the promise of growth for both. As she locked eyes with Anna, the next chapter of their baking journey awaited them, one filled with silent promises, emotional revelations, and unexpected discoveries. But was she brave enough to let it unfold? The thought gripped her, both daunting and exhilarating. As Margaret and Anna ventured outside, clutching a carefully arranged plate of cookies, the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting playful shadows on the pathway. Each step felt loaded with unspoken truths, a blend of anticipation mixed with fear. Sharing the cookies was a tangible act, yet the deeper implications weighed heavily on Margaret's mind. Anna bounced ahead, her small frame brimming with energy, completely unburdened by the emotional complexity swirling around them. Margaret admired her daughter's innocence, but in her heart she questioned how to navigate this space, how to balance the joy of baking with the solemnity of remembrance. "Mom, why don't we tell Mrs. Carter about our cookies while we walk?" Anna's voice broke through Margaret's thoughts. "Good idea, sweetie. Let's make sure we share what they mean too," Margaret responded, her voice steadier than she felt. Each word signified a commitment to not only confront, but celebrate what they were learning together. As they neared the neighbor's house, the familiar scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the fragrance of her baked goods. Yet the short distance to the front door felt longer than usual, each heartbeat reflecting back her insecurities about what was to come. What if Mrs. Carter didn't understand? What if she brought up feelings that were too raw for Anna? Taking a deep breath, Margaret forced herself to focus on Anna, who hopped between the neat flower beds, a giggle escaping her lips. There was something magnetic about the child's delight that drew Margaret out of her rut. It was a reminder that they were not just sharing cookies, but a part of their healing journey. "Mrs. Carter loves to hear stories," Margaret encouraged her daughter. "Why don't we share what we've named our cookies?" Anna's face lit up, her excitement granting Margaret a sliver of confidence. "Okay."
"Mine's about science, right, Mom?" "Yes, and mine is about feelings," she replied, trying to keep her tone light despite the storm beneath her surface. When they finally knocked on Mrs. Carter's door, the elderly woman greeted them with a warm smile and an inviting hug, her laughter resonating through the air. It was the kind of genuine welcome that eased something deep inside Margaret, a shared sense of community that felt encouraged, but still unnerving. "Oh, my dears, what have you brought me today?" Mrs. Carter inquired, glancing at the plate with twinkling eyes. With a nervous flick of her wrist, Margaret placed the cookies on the small table nestled in the living room. "We made these together, and we wanted to share their meanings." As Anna spoke about her cookie, Margaret found herself reflecting on her own struggles. Could she also unveil the feelings behind her cookie? Did she have the strength to speak about grief openly, not just in whispers, but as an affirmation of love and loss? "Mommy's cookie represents how we can understand our feelings, even the sad ones," Anna chimed in, her innocent honesty filling the room. Margaret felt the stir of her emotions rising. Here was the moment, the crossroads between vulnerability and courage. Could she let her guard down? "And sometimes it helps us remember people we love and miss," she added, her voice thickening with sincerity. Mrs. Carter's expression softened, the depth of their connection unfolding in that moment.
They shared stories of loss, laughter, and the sweet nostalgia of baking, each anecdote bringing Margaret and Anna closer, not just to Mrs. Carter, but to each other as well. Yet beneath that blooming connection, doubt began to bubble within Margaret. The experience had reinvigorated her sense of purpose, but shadows loomed. Would telling these stories lead to more conversations about grief and loss? Would Anna encounter discomfort that she wouldn't know how to navigate? As they departed, Margaret's heart was racing with exhilaration and fear. They had taken a crucial step toward broadening their emotional horizons, but now a question loomed larger than before. Could they continue to confront the complexity of their feelings with the same grace and understanding? With renewed determination, Margaret glanced at Anna, who was chatting animatedly about their next baking adventure. The promise of growth lay ahead, ripe with possibility, the atmosphere thick with transformation, but doubt lingered. Would she remain steady on this journey of discovery, or would the weight of unvoiced emotions hold her back? With every step back home, the tension of these unasked questions hung in the air, fueling an urgency that was impossible to ignore. The next chapter of their emotional exploration was about to unfold, and Margaret felt both a sense of dread and a spark of hope igniting within her. What new dimensions of understanding awaited them?
Days turned into weeks, and Margaret's transformation became increasingly evident. Her kitchen, previously a realm of stagnation, now thrived with energy and delightful fragrances, echoing laughter and conversations layered with newfound meaning. Each baking session felt like an exploration of soul, allowing her to navigate the contours of her grief while solidifying her role as a nurturing mother. One evening, as they prepared for another baking adventure, Anna's cheerful voice pierced the ambiance. "Mom, I was thinking we should show our friends how to bake too, like a class." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, a beacon of motivation for Margaret. "What a wonderful idea, Anna. We can teach them about connecting feelings and baking. But I'd like us to do something special as well," Margaret proposed, her heart thrumming with excitement and a hint of trepidation. They spent the next few days curating a plan, selecting recipes that represented challenges and celebrations. The process was invigorating, infusing not only their kitchen but their lives with purpose. Margaret realized that teaching others reflected her commitment to sharing the depth of emotions that accompanied each recipe, giving rise to further connections. On the day of their scheduled baking session with friends, the kitchen brimmed with energy. As they donned their aprons, a chaotic mix of excitement and anxiety washed over Margaret. She saw that gathering as her chance to reinforce what she had learned. Vulnerability inspired connection. Would she be able to maintain that openness amidst a crowd? The doorbell rang, and a flurry of children's laughter filled the house. Friends gathered, curious and excited about the prospect of baking. With her daughter leading the charge, Margaret quickly assessed the dynamics. The sense of community mingled with the flicker of uncertainty. "Okay, everyone," she called, initiating the session. "We're making cookies that tell stories today. Each ingredient represents something about you." As the children paired off and began their creations, Margaret encouraged Anna to share what she understood about their earlier experiences. "You know, feelings matter. When you're sad or happy, baking can help you feel those things, and it's okay." Margaret watched her daughter's confidence shine, sealing her own resolve. As she circulated through the gathering, she took moments to engage with children and their parents, encouraging them to bring forward their thoughts and feelings about the cookies they were creating. When it was finally time to share their baked goods, the air brimmed with shared stories. Children offered imaginative interpretations of their cookies, blending laughter with the seriousness of their sentiments. Margaret felt an exhilarating weight lift from her chest as she joined in these expressions, each cookie a tangible manifestation of healing and resilience. Then it came time for Margaret to step forward.
"I want to share something about the cookies I've baked with Anna. It's taken me a long time to realize that embracing our feelings doesn't have to be burdensome. It can be beautiful. Cooking together has helped us foster a deeper understanding of love and loss," she shared, her breaths deepening as she confronted the lingering vulnerability within her. In that statement, a change rippled through the room. Eyes locked onto her, sincere and inviting, lending voices to the collective grief they all shared in some form or another. Conversations blossomed, and Margaret found herself empowered, unpacking her own insecurities while intertwining them with the weight of others' experiences. The process no longer felt daunting. It was liberating. By the end of the gathering, the celebration was a testament to their journey. The cookies adorned with sprinkles symbolized not just sweetness, but a flavorful mix of raw emotions that had been voiced and tasted together. In this moment, Margaret basked in the validation of her courage.
She had conquered the obstacles that once felt insurmountable. As the last of the guests filtered out, Margaret felt a profound sense of completeness. Layering her narrative alongside others had solidified her understanding of how to navigate complexities of connection. The once fractured mother now stood solid in her identity. Baking had become more than just food. It was a vehicle to heal, share, and grow. In the quiet aftermath, Anna turned to her mother and said, "That was so much fun. I love baking with you and sharing stories." Her warmth encapsulated Margaret's heart, pulsing with gratitude and pride. Margaret smiled, the affirmation settling in her bones. "You know, dear, every cookie tells a story, but the biggest story is how we continue to rise together." In this space of quiet celebration, Margaret realized her personal achievement. She had established a renewed identity by embracing her past with fear and found fulfillment in a journey marked by authenticity and shared experience. The kitchen buzzed with possibility, the path to healing now eternally open. Now is the time to reflect your journey and to hold on to the emergence of this beautiful transformation. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth like Margaret's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and broaden the reach, making these heartfelt stories available for more to experience. Comment your reactions and your thoughts on where you see growth in your own lives, sharing your theories on upcoming journeys. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need this encouragement to reflect and embrace their own paths. Don't wait even one more second. Let's inspire one another with stories of overcoming.